Hi everyone, welcome to IGCSE First Language English Syllabus 0500. Today we will be looking at Paper 2, Section B, Narrative Writing, focusing on plot formation. Paper 2 is a written paper, 2 hours with 80 marks in hand. You will have to answer 2 questions, one from each section. The texts will be printed on the question paper insert, and you will only require the text for the first question in the first section. Dictionaries are not allowed. Since our focus is on Section B for today, Section B is on composition writing. You have to answer one question from a choice of 4 titles. You will be given 2 descriptive titles and 2 narrative titles. You use the title to develop and write a composition in about 350 to 450 words only. The question would test your following writing assessment objectives. Are you able to articulate experience and express what is thought, felt, and imagined? Are you able to organize and structure your ideas and opinions for a particular effect? Can you use a range of vocabulary and sentence structures appropriate to the context which has been set? Are you using registers appropriate to the context, meaning your choice of words? And last but not least, have you made accurate use of spelling, punctuation, and grammar? Basically, proofreading. Now, plot development. Your three-phase narrative does not always need to involve a dramatic event. Sometimes the disequilibrium of a story can be quite subtle, meaning it's not in your face. At times, it can be a petty argument, something that is so minor. This is where a story is more character-based rather than plot-based, and the story is more about the maturing of a person or a relationship. So the change taking place would be more emotional and psychological rather than it being a massive event. So it deals a lot with emotions rather than what is on the major surface. Understanding the craft of narrative writing is equally important. A good narrative writing skill would encompass the ability to build on and encourage the development of a good grasp of the writing mechanics. They also require the development of an additional skill set, in particular, the ability to tell a good yarn, a good story. Telling stories is as old as humanity. We expect everyone to be able to tell a story. The difference would be how interesting that story is. We see and hear stories everywhere and on a daily basis. For instance, you have a good gossip on the doorstep with your neighbor in the morning, or you exchange stories with your classmates the moment you see them in school, and coming up with a good tale is equally a craft. It's based on your creativity. Okay, and this craft can be taught, practiced, and perfected over time. So it's not exactly rocket science. You can work on it, you can practice on it, you can perfect it. The main elements that comprise a good story would include setting, characters, problem, climax, and resolution. So structuring your narrative, you have orientation, which is your beginning, where you set the scene, where you introduce the characters, setting, and time of the story. Complications and events would be the middle part of your story, the actual body. So you talk about the activities and events involving your main characters and you expand on that, you elaborate on that. And of course, there should be a proper organized structure. And your resolution is where your conflict is resolved, but it does not necessarily end on a happily ever after note. It can be a sad ending as long as the conflict is resolved. So here we have the plot structure in detail in a diagram form. We start off with the exposition, where you talk about the characters, you introduce the basic situation, you set the atmosphere and things like that. And then before you move up to the rising action, you bring in an element of the conflict. Okay, as you work your way up to the rising action, we reach the peak of the story, which is the climax. This is the turning point of your plot, your story. And after that, we fall from the action where the conflict would somehow decrease. And we end on a note where conflict has been resolved. Thank you.